You are watching the #1 podcast in the whole entire wrestling community, and I'm one of your hosts, Juanzo.
And I'm your other host, Jean-Paul Leek.
And together we are
Rope
Break. And welcome to another episode of the Broken Skull Sessions. You know, our thoughts, reactions, everything that we think that was really meaningful of this, great show that Stone Cold Steve Austin has. This time he gave us I think a person that, he has a long career in the WWE. So there was actually a lot of topics to talk about. And this is the Viper, Randy Orton, Paul.
Yeah, this was really good. This is probably my favorite, I would say, out of the last few. Maybe even one of my favorites next to The Undertaker's. Now, that's a little biased because he had 2 episodes. So it's okay, of course, that's going to usually, be the best because he had way more time to talk, way more stories and everything. But this was really good. It's kind of a different side of Randy Orton. Normally, you see him as just his character on TV, the cocky, slimy heel. But here, we got to see how thankful he is, at least in his older, mature age. He realizes how lucky he was. And he just, recounts, his just how easy it was, like he said, for him to get into the WWE, all the opportunities he was given and everything. But he's, really thankful. And we found out he wants to wrestle into his 50s. So, there's still, he said, 10 more years of the Viper.
Exactly. So we're going to be talking about, just what we thought it was really meaningful about this interview. So, family, please be with us. And, don't forget to support us just from video from yesterday. And this is, the Real Edge is back. Smackdown, review, the Rated R Superstar finally goes heel. Kind of he wants to protect what he won. Because it's the Royal Rumble, so he wanted to just keep a singles match between Roman Reigns and him. But no, Adam Pearce and everybody. I guess the Yes Movement changed the match one more time, and they were going to a throwback from WrestleMania 2014. And it's going to be a triple threat between Daniel Bryan and him and now Roman Reigns. So check us out. A really good, opportunity to see how Edge is finally going to Psychopath. So now, Paul, tell me a little bit about this Randy Orton that we get to find out in Stone Cold Steve Austin interview. Randy Orton, the origins of him, we find out that he didn't really want to wrestle at the beginning. He knew that his dad, the cowboy Bob Orton, he was a wrestler, but he never had that idea in his mind. He didn't like the business, from that standpoint, he wanted to do that right away.
Yeah, he said it. I believe he said it was in high school or maybe early years in college. I think it was late high school. He's I started to get into it. And he's all my friends are well, what the hell? Your dad's a wrestler. You going to get into it? What are you doing? And it's and you saw he was always athletic, always in shape. He's tall. So it's he's a perfect fit for the business. And, he said, okay, yeah, let me try this. And his dad pretty much got him the got him the job opportunity, right away. And, he talked to Tom Pritchard, Bruce Pritchard, all them. And they're oh, yeah, you have a kid. Oh, he's a good athlete. Yeah, bring him in. And boom, they pretty much gave him a job right away. Yeah. And then he got sent to OVW now. But before that, is that when the whole Army thing happened? When he went to the Army?
Yeah,
he went AWOL? Because now they didn't go into this too much. I forget where it was, but I remember hearing this story before. I don't know if it was another interview or maybe some other documentary thing WWE did with Randy Orton. But I remember hearing this, how he went to the military and he didn't like it and he left. And then he had to come back and serve a little sentence for going AWOL and all this stuff. And I mean,
he signed a contract, he said, right?
Yeah.
He said he's on a contract, so he had to stay in in the base then for 45 days or so before he was actually let go. He was able to leave. So he doesn't have anything, and then he's what do I do? What do I do? And then he's what about you pursue your father's career? And he started to be a wrestler. He debuted remember with Hardcore Holly. That was his first match on SmackDown. He got the contract OVW with all these guys with Cena, Batista, Lesnar, all of them.
And that goes into the thing you said. All those guys were passionate or either wrestlers Lesnar, Shelton Benjamin. They were actually wrestlers in school and college and everything. He's all these guys had some kind of background and passion for it, and they had to really strive and put in a lot of work to get there. And he's I was just oh yeah, I'm Bob Orton's kid and I got the job. So then he's yeah, had a little bit of heat because he really didn't have to work and claw to get there. And he even mentioned guys like Kevin Owens, how long it took them to get to WWE, and for him it really only took one phone call. And like you said, he debuted right away. And, when they talked about one of his early matches, with him and The Undertaker.
Yeah, the Undertaker's match. That was a really good, like the way that how they broke it down, because wrestlers don't really do this, but like how don't you think that like Stone Cold Steve Austin is like, oh, look how he's selling for you, or look at like the moves that he's letting you do, or he's having fun with you, like I never seen your wrestlers kind of break down a match like that move by move, and that kind of like you seen like the Undertaker, like he let him do like a lot of moves, and now that you think about it, once you see this, it's like, wow, like the Undertaker actually had faith in him, and
and it's
because the Undertaker doesn't do that for everybody.
No, and like, he said Vince was pissed. He's like, said to Taker, what are you doing? And he's like, whoa, that's our job. I got to make the kid look good. He's our future. And like Randy said, but, so this is when SmackDown was taped. So really what all you saw was 2 minutes of that match. They cut out all my offense, and, it was just, Taker getting the win. So it's like nobody really saw it until later on when that footage was released. But like you said, Taker had that respect for his father, the respect for him. And, unfortunately, in the beginning of his career, that faith and respect was a little bit misplaced.
Yeah, it's true. It's true, like you said, and well, like we get to see this Randy Orton that he won, like he was part of Evolution. So let's talk about a little bit. Let's fast forward to Evolution, like a really good, group that like did everything, like push every single guy. Ric Flair, why? Because remember, Ric Flair got his career back. He was not confident. You put Ric Flair back on the map, because outside of that, there was nothing to do for Ric Flair. Batista, the big muscle, the next big thing. Remember, outside of Brock Lesnar, Batista. Right there, Randy Orton is the mixture in between the two. Like is the young talent. He's like, he can learn from everybody. And then Triple H, he solidified himself. Remember, breaking down from DX, breaking down to like singles career. He's in a group again. He's the leader. This is for me like one of the best groups of all time, because every element was right there for all these four guys to succeed. So like this is like all of this. So tell me a little bit about that.
And this was good, and like you said, to be thrust into that, to that group and that have that opportunity so early on in his career, IC champ, all that stuff. It's like, yeah, he had, again, he had a little bit of heat, because it's like, he's just given these opportunities. Like he said, he's so thankful for all these opportunities, but he realizes and he understands why a lot of guys would be pissed. Guys work, 5-10 years and they don't get half these opportunities that he's already gotten in a short career. And I like how when he said, oh, yeah, I was doing a training thing and I was in a figure four and Triple H walks in and I'm selling the shit out of the figure four. Like, so Triple H would take notice. And he's like, I think he did. And that was kind of one of the things to be like, oh, that's Bob Orton's kid. Oh, okay. To get him into Evolution. So like that was good. And like you said, another thing is, he wants some of the boys were like, oh yeah, sit with us at the catering table or whatever. And he's like, no, I got to sit with Triple H and Ric Flair and all them. So again, just stuff to be like, oh, you're too good for us. You got to sit with them. So, it's good stuff.
Yeah. He had to endure a lot of heat from the boys and all of that. And you see how Stone Cold, like, remember at the beginning of the interviews, like, well, I thought that, like, you never liked me. It's like, hey, like we never really talk. Like every time that you were there, we kind of like, hey, say hi, and that was it. But we haven't really talked. And remember,
yeah, because Randy Orton kind of, started 2002, 2003-ish, right when Stone Cold was out the door. So
yes, and then remember, like he actually pulled out like the bottle of the whiskey that he had, and then it was like this bottle. I opened it with the Undertaker, and then you saw the interactions between the two, like really friendly. Like they were having a good time. When somebody's having a good time, you kind of feed off that energy.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, enjoying it and loving it, and like remember, like we go to the Evolution years, and he goes like, well, how come? What was the beginning of the Legend Killer? And then he put over Mick Foley in the big way, because that match with Backlash, you've seen that match, I've seen it, it's just amazing, and that's how Randy Orton became in the map. That's how he started like to build in that status that he has now in the WWE. Remember, he was tag champ, like you said. He was also like the IC champion. He had that match with The Rock. And the Foley with the Rock and Sock connection against Evolution, 3 against 2. But then this rivalry is what made Randy Orton. For me, that was the first step into creating this star that he is. Remember when he, like, Mick Foley counters the RKO, and then boom, like he gets in the thumbtacks and all of that. Mick Foley, like, helped him out in a big way.
Oh, yeah, and I love when they ask, Stone Cold's like, oh, what do you think of thumbtacks? And Randy Orton's like, yeah, they suck. He's like, no, not going to be like, oh, it's fine. And Stone Cold's like, yeah, that's why I said no thumbtacks in any of my matches. But, they put over Mick Foley, and this match really, same thing with Triple H. What's one of the big feuds that put Triple H on the map? His feud with Mick Foley. Same thing with Randy Orton. And I always love whenever you see, and even in the King of the Ring match that Mick had with Taker, when he's getting pinned for the 1, 2, 3 at the end of the match, he still has that leg kicking, like, oh, is he going to kick out? He's trying, but he can't, So, I mean, but this isn't about Mick. This is about Randy Orton. But, I mean, it was a legit feud. And, again, put Randy Orton on the map. All these veterans, these guys who are really over, are putting over this young guy. Like you said, yeah, with Harley Race, spitting in his face, like they said, and when he's like, when Harley Race swung at me, don't matter that he was 60, 70 years old. He's like, I wanted to get out of the way because I didn't want some old man to knock me out on TV.
But remember, exactly, he says that, but also he says, well, all these legends did these favors for me because they love my old man, they love my dad. Like, oh, you cover like Bob Orton's kid, okay, I'm gonna help you out. He's like, it also like it shows that like everything that like they did for him, it was because like they respected his father.
Yes.
So he actually was able to be more successful because he had like everybody's like opportunity to just be a superstar thanks to Cowboy Bob Orton, and that was really great. And then we go to also like this like thing with Edge. Remember, Rated RKO. They had like a great run, and that actually will come full circle because of the rivalry they had last year and all of that, even like a few months ago. But like he says that Edge would play like a really cool role in his life because at that time, remember, it was the self-destruction of Randy Orton, a lot of drug use. He didn't say the word drugs, but we know it's drugs. But like he kind of Stone Cold also like dance around the idea, like, well, someday they tell me in the most family-oriented way. So they kind of like went around it.
Yeah, because they didn't want to get taken off Peacock.
Yes, exactly. Because I guess Peacock, every single thing is not making it. Everything that is going about ECW says, add it to their best moments and all of that. So like Edge played like that, big brother mentor for Randy Orton, because remember he said for that match at WrestleMania with The Undertaker, he had rehearsal on Saturday, and then he had to go to the Hall of Fame, and he missed that rehearsal. And in that rehearsal, it was like Steamboat, it was Michael Hayes, it was Taker, and Mike Chioda, and Bob Orton. So like he missed it because he was partying all night. And he said, and you see like he was really still, disappointed that he did that. So you see Randy Orton completely understood like what he meant to be in this position that, like you said, for other guys it takes years, and even they don't even make it, or how big he got it for them.
Exactly. And it's like, he now, at the time he's probably like, he felt bad, but he was still like, yeah, whatever, I don't care, I'm Randy Orton. But now he realizes like, man, they really could have fired me, they really could have got rid of me. Like, I'm so lucky that I'm still here, still had all these opportunities, even though I kept screwing up.
Exactly, that's how, like, at least he understands it. And then after that we got to see the evolution of Randy Orton per se, no pun intended. Into that they talk about the match, the rivalry with John Cena, for like so many matches, so many years. Like they actually went probably like the most times on pay-per-view that I ever seen. And
I think Stone Cold says like it's one of his greatest rivals and it's legit matches, but too many.
Oh yeah, and remember, Randy goes, indeed, there were too many, because like they fought sometimes on pay-per-view for no reason. But like like at least the best moments that we saw from like this interview was like, remember, like you mentioned it to me, when like he would grab the titles for like TLC 2013 when they had the unification match and all of that, and he's like, Randy, why did you take your time? And then he explains, he's like, well, I learned how to be peaceful. And remember, like every single wrestler that we've seen in this show, less is more.
Yep. Or slow it down. Yeah, exactly.
You don't need to put it like you don't need to go boom, 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 boom.
Not like a AEW.
yeah, exactly. Like don't go. And even Jim Rose, maybe that's what Jim Rose is mentioning. Is like you do more by doing less. By showing more emotion. Even remember, like he said, what did Ric Flair, what did Triple H like taught you? Oh, how to lock up, how to like put the lock really good, how to like move it around, how to like like put like more pressure, and you kind of like make them believe that like you're showing something different, that you're showing more the more emotion you see, the less you got to do. That's what pretty much he's telling us. So like I really enjoy that part. And Cena, a lot of people like don't give enough credit to John Cena. They say, oh, 5 moves of doom, blah blah blah, but like if you really think about Cena, like he had really great rivalries and he helped out a lot of guys.
Oh yeah, I think Cena's one of the things where it's like at the time people hated him because he was pushed so much, but looking back, you're like, you know what, like what if you would have taken him out, WWE wouldn't have been as legit for all those years. They needed him.
Yeah, they needed him. And, and Randy Orton, they had, 08, 09, like really great stuff at rivalries, like they had a really good stuff, Mania matches, all of that. So really good stuff on that. Like they talk about this guy, but like the guy that outworked everyone. And, like you said, this was probably like taped way before he will give the news like he was going to be on AEW. But they said he's one of the best creative minds in the business. And I agree, you know, like Christian, like, is so underrated. And that's the main reason that I'm so happy that he's an AEW. Not saying that AEW is going to do any favors to him, but at least he's trying something different. Because, like, in WWE, he was never treated like the way he should have. You know, like, even Randy Orton, Stone Cold, all like, oh, he helped me out to create what? Remember, he's like, well, sending a big thing, a long message. And he goes, what? So, like, you know, you see, like, the big rivalry that they have with Randy Orton, the match at SummerSlam, kendo sticks and everything. The only thing I will complain was the finish was always the same. But, you know, Randy Orton also, like, loves Christian. And, you know, he seems to me that, like, he has more chemistry with Edge. But, like, with Christian, it was more like a rivalry thing. So I really enjoyed that part.
Yeah, you know, it was good. And like you said, you know, Christian, you know, could he have won one and, like, you know, been legit for him, you know, title reign and stuff? No. But, you know, that's just our personal bias and love for Christian. But I was really happy that they put him over, you know, and Stone Cold said, you know, that match at TLC is just like one of his favorite matches, and it's their favorite match, or one of his favorite Randy Orton matches, and it is a good match. And you know, like, I was happy to see this. I was happy they mentioned him, and like we said, you know, I think they filmed this and, you know, got it right in before he was like, so I'm going to work for Tony Khan.
Yeah, I agree. I feel that, like, that's what they did it. But like you said, he took his time in the rivalry with Cena, all of that. So now we go to the origins of the RKO. He mentions that this story, like you said, really quick, right? Like, he get, like, the ace crusher from, like, John Laurinaitis. I guess he even mentions Laurinaitis was cool with me. So, like, he gave me his finisher. He's like, it's a legit move. I can hit it from anywhere. And that's the beauty of a good finisher. That when you can hit it from anywhere to anybody at any point given in the match. And then we get to see the best one that many people consider the best one of all time is the one with Evan Bourne on Matt Sydal. So, or like the one with Seth Rollins is also one of the best ones. And you said, you mentioned that they shot this move from, like, the really close side, right? So, like, they wouldn't, like, see if there was any mess ups. Is that what he said, right?
Yeah, just he's like, you know, because they didn't really practice it, and he's just like, I was laying flat on my back to jump up, hit an RKO. He's doing that shooting star, and they didn't really know if they could hit it right, so the camera was, you know, zoomed in case they wouldn't, so you wouldn't see the mess up. He's like, but we hit it good, and a lot of people say that's the best RKO. And, you know, like, he's like, I needed a name for this finisher, you know, couldn't call it the Ace Crush or whatever. He's like, Vince and I were walking past each other in the hallway. I knew I needed to give him a name. He's like, RKO, like TKO. It's my initials. Vince was like, yep, sounds good to me. And then he's like, that's how we got it. And, you know, it's one of the most famous finishers of all time.
Yeah, and you don't pull up what, like, he says it, and so for some people, life is like that. You know, we can actually bring this to personal life. It's like, you are in the right moment, in the right time. You know, for a lot of people like that are really successful, they have, like, it's not like Kevin Owens or El Generico. You know, don't even talk about El Generico because this is actually painful. But for Randy, Keith, Orton, you know, that's why the RKO, like, things happen to be that way.
And what do you think about the part where Stone Cold was like, oh, let's go the stunner versus the RKO, and he's showing RKO, and, like, I'm like, I get it's his show, but, like, really, does he have to be putting himself over?
That was a little bullshit, like you said. It's like,
I was like, okay, I'm like, what is this? Did he have too many beers?
More effective, you know, like, I'm like, come on, it's like, and that's the only thing that would be, like, really Stone Cold. But, like, I feel that, like, for example, like, if you're having a really good time, you know, I feel you can do that. I mean, you know, because, like, for example, they kept getting shots, you know, the beer and all of that. So with this one, I feel that it felt good. For example, if he would have been to Goldberg, or like the jackhammer is better than the stunner or something like that, I would have been like, oh, you know, F this.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Like, because like out of these two finishers, tell me about it. The most lethal ones can be those? Can we consider those? Because, for example, like, the Switch.
I would say definitely the most protected. Because, like, I mean, yeah, Sweet Chin Music was protected, Razor's Edge, you know, all that stuff. But, like, you know, I would say these two, usually if Stone Cold hit somebody with the stunner, they were pinned. And Randy Orton hit somebody with an RKO, they're pinned. Now, recently, we saw Drew kick out. I believe AJ kicked out of their match at Mania. So, people have recently kicked out of it. The Fiend might have, I don't remember. But, you know, this, you know, it is a protected finisher. So, I would say, yeah, I mean, they're definitely up there.
No, yeah, exactly. So, and remember what he said, you know, it's like, oh, like, the RKO, like, is giving you, like, is done really good for you because you've won 14 championships, like, 14 title opportunities you won 14. And
and they actually talked, I like when they talked about the first one, they're like, oh, how did it feel? He's like, oh, it was so legit. And they're like, yeah, that's a shoot. You know, even though it's a predetermined, you know, sport, it still feels so legit when you win it. And it's like, yeah, I only held it for like 30 days and then dropped it to Triple H, and
yeah, but because he said, "He's like, were you ready? Were you ready?" It's like, hell no. And then Stone Cold, like, the one thing I like Stone Cold, he goes like, "This is a shoot." He'll say, "This is a shoot." So like, if you don't know what shoot is in the wrestling world, it is like, this is real. For people that don't know what, like, because even Paul surprised me with that. He's like, "Oh, let's shoot." I'm like, okay, I'm not gonna, I don't want to die, but like, it's like, shoot, like, it's real. So like, I like that, and of course they're not gonna say anything about Benoit, but like, remember, like, he was never ready for that because at that point he was the youngest WWE champion of all time.
And also, it was a transition to get the belt on Triple H. When they decided to put it on Randy, it was to put it on Triple H. They already knew it was going to happen. I
remember, like, the bullshit days of Triple H when he would win the championship all the time. And,
yep.
I mean, it's okay. He turned babyface, like you said, that then we'll go in this obscurity, but then Rated RKO save him. So let's go now to the part that, like, he says, like, oh, yeah, the promo bullshit. He's like, you were always a legit wrestler. You know how to, like, do your moves. You always had a good match, but promo really mediocre. And even he says that Michael Hayes said that to him.
Yeah, like, and he says, and he's like, yeah, Stone Cold. He's like, oh, I didn't think you liked me. And I didn't really like you because I saw an interview you did a couple years ago, and you said I was bullshit promo. And he's like, but now I realize I was. And Randy even said it himself. He feels his promos only got good, last year when he was doing the Legend Killer stuff and the stuff with Edge and Beth. And they replayed that promo, how good that was and everything. And just because it was real, it was the emotion. And, I want your opinion on this. Randy said, like, you can be the best wrestler in ring, but unless you're legit on the mic, he's like, that's even sometimes more important than being legit as a wrestler in the ring. So, I mean, I guess technically he's not wrong because you look at guys like Benoit, who we brought up. I mean, obviously he's forgotten because of, what he did at the end of his life, but it's like he wasn't really ever pushed that good because he wasn't that good of a promo.
It's true. So. But it's absolutely true. Let's go with a guy that right now is getting a little bit of a push. Cesaro.
Yeah.
But why is the main reason he's been held back? No good, never good on the mic. Yeah, no exactly. Good. And it's because I think that, like, for example, in the WWE mindset, it's just like the ability to connect.
And also because what do they always call themselves? Sports entertainment. You have to be able to entertain people.
Exactly, because let's talk about Timothy Thatcher. A lot of people, one of the best technical wrestlers right now. Outside of the wrestling world, do you know who Timothy Thatcher is? If we wouldn't be a road break, that we watch absolutely everything.
Why is Cena a 16-time champion? Because he's one of the best on the mic. Like we said, maybe he's 5 moves of doom, but he's one of the best on the mic.
Exactly, so. And for example, you know this, Paul. Stone Cold was never the best wrestler in the whole world. Maybe, legit, maybe 3 moves, Luz Express, okay, the stunner, okay, maybe a suplex, a back body drop every now and then.
Yeah, I mean, he was better before he broke his neck and had to change his style, but I know what you mean. But, like, if he didn't have that promo ability, he wouldn't have definitely been as pushed. Exactly. Same thing with The Rock.
Yeah, Rock, I would say between the two, a little bit better. He had a variety of a moveset, but also, not great. But, like, the promo war is what makes you connect. Because audiences are going to remember what you say rather than what you see in the ring. Maybe, for example, and I'm going to ask you this really quick. Bret Hart, maybe that's the reason why so many people maybe don't acknowledge him as, like, the best of all time.
His promos were definitely mediocre. To me, they were only really good when he was heel at the end of his run in WWE. But, yeah, I mean, his in-ring was legit. Maybe nobody was better. Maybe you could argue Shawn at the time, but other than that, no one really else. But the promos were, middle of the road, like I said.
Yeah, exactly. So, we go like now. Let's move forward to, like, the best match, the greatest match ever, and there you go. Like, we got to see this match, and remember that, like, Vince said, like, he's gonna pipe in, like, some crowd reaction is like, no, don't do it. No, don't do it. Like, we don't want that because it's just like this match they already planned out. And it's supposed like they already had an idea what they were going to do. They had the NXT guys just to, like, hype them up a little bit. So they did talk about this and how, like, they had a great feud. Unfortunately, Edge got injured in the process, but no.
Yeah, remember they had, like, the voice clip of Howard Finkel introduce him and all this stuff. They had the mic come down from the ceiling and all that stuff. I mean, that was one of my favorite matches of the year. So, I really liked it, and like. They didn't really put it over. Like, Randy didn't say, like, oh, this is one of my favorite matches, blah, blah, blah. They were just like, oh, it was legit. Even Edge hurt himself, but he finished the match, all this stuff. But they didn't really like go into like how great this match really was. Which I mean, at least I personally thought it was, you know, one of the best matches.
Oh yeah, you know, like they went like so many avenues. Remember, like they did rock bottom, the pedigree. They went to like, you know, like paying tribute to like all these superstars, and you know, like he mentioned all of that. So like a really informative interview of Randy Orton, how he feels. He's just a regular guy outside. So I really like that, and you know, he talked about Drew. You know, there's the latest feud, that like really meaningful feud, because to me the Fiend, yeah, is good, but it's been too long. And for example, can you talk about quality matches with the Fiend? No. We were telling a story with the Fiend. You know, the wrestling kind of is move aside, it's put to the side because you just keep trying to tell a story. But like here, you had a really great feud with McIntyre, and he said at the beginning I didn't want to work with him, but then I understood that like he loves the business, he lives the business, he personifies the business, and also he's been improving. And then he goes talking about like being bullshit at promo. He's like, look at this guy. In 1 year, he went from like so bullshit to like now extremely great. And that's Drew. Like he even said, I'm pretty sure he's probably taking acting classes on the side. So yeah, you see that like Randy respects that, and you know we enjoy this feud.
Yeah.
You know, and yeah,
and then this was good. It, you know, it gave Randy his 14th title reign, and you know the one thing legit he said, he's like, you know, Cena has 16. I'm only 2 away. I want to wrestle 10 more years. You know, maybe I'll get these 2 title reigns, and then Cena and I can have a match. You know, and I don't know. Maybe Randy will be the champ, or maybe neither of them will be champ. And it's like, you know, let's see who's going to get it the 17th time kind of deal. And he's like, there's a story to be told there. I wouldn't mind seeing that. I know people are like, oh, really? Do we got to see these 2 again? But when it's some crazy history like that, I mean, that'll be good. But, you know, the feud he had with Drew was great. I know a lot of people said bullshit title run, but you know, you have to reward Randy Orton with something for putting in that amount of work. You know, the great feud with Edge and everything, and then the legend killer, him with Ric Flair, then eventually moving on to Drew and all that. You deserve to have that 14th title reign, even if it was short.
Exactly. You know, that's what it is. And I feel like that pretty much says it all. You know, we got to see that. Like, and you know what, to me, then that's why I have this picture up. It's just because, like, oh, they said the RKO is great and all of that, but they never mentioned the word CM Punk. And that's the one that he's receiving right there, the RKO. Like, I don't know why. Like, I mean, of course, there's still the hatred with the WWE. But, you know, like, it will always be good to hear, like, what people really think about CM Punk. Just to hear, like, what they...
They need to remember how they did, like, the burial of the Ultimate Warrior? They need to do that with CM Punk.
Yes, exactly. So, like, you know,
that would be funny.
Because, like, they have the first RKO right there. Because, like, that's one of the few people that they did something different with the RKO. This is WrestleMania 2011. That they had a feud because at that point CM Punk was like the leader of the Nexus, and he went against Randy Orton. That's how the match ended. But you know, this pretty much summarizes everything that we said in this video. You know, is go watch it. I feel that is a great interview. Yes. You're gonna appreciate Randy Orton a lot more just for hearing like the guy. He's so thankful for the position that he has, for all the opportunities he's been given. Yeah, he has his downs like every single one of us. And remember what he said is like, oh, we're all human here. We all bleed. We all have emotions. We all go through ups and downs. But in the end, he said, what message would you like to give to young talent? Trust your instinct. That was how he ended it. Trust it. You know, you only know how to get over. You have to find out what makes you legit, what makes you great, and, you know, really cash into that. So really good. Exactly. Really good. Go watch it. You know, the Viper, a really good, probably one of the best ones. You know, any closing thoughts, Mo?
No, I mean, you know, like you said, this is one of the best ones. We know we gave all of our, you know, our thoughts here. We don't want to give it all away because, you know, we want you guys to go watch it. It's one of the best ones, and I'm excited to see what they have next. These Broken Skull sessions are always so great, and this one was really good just because, as we said, sometimes a lot of modern wrestlers, you know, current stars, are sometimes a little starstruck when they're with Stone Cold because it's like maybe somebody who they looked up to, their idol. But with Randy Orton, he was of that generation where it's like, he maybe didn't really look up to Stone Cold, so it's just like they had more of like a respect than just like, oh, you're my idol kind of deal. So this one was really good. Like you said, the conversation, the interaction between the two was great, and I think that's why it was one of the best episodes.
Exactly, and you know, and then they finished the bottle. They finished the bottle, and he got it signed and all of that. So like he said, they had to take her, and that's how we're going to close it. So family, thank you so very much for being with us. Don't forget to please subscribe, hit that bell for notifications. We put content every single day, and also like give the video a like so we can keep growing in the rankings and keep growing for every single one of you. So where else can they find us, Paul?
Exactly. And follow us, Rope Break on Facebook, the OG Rope Break on Twitter, Original Rope Break on Instagram, and of course right here on YouTube, the home of the #1 podcast, the Original Rope Break.
Thank you so very much, family. You and me have one more thing that is left to say, and that is...